A vivarium is an enclosed container that is used to display or observe animals, specimens, plants, and yes, think of a terrarium, an aviary, an aquarium, yes, all of those things. So it has its origins in the Victorian era, and you know, those Victorians loved all things nature, and it just is so late 1800s Victorian era. I love this. So this is Vivarium, and I am so proud of it. I just adore the detail that Joe was able to get. It really does allude to those Victorian era pieces. And we're going to use it today to create a beautiful botanical collection, and some birds underneath. We're gonna create a little aviary, a spring aviary. But I want you to look at this, and I want you to think of how incredibly freaking cool this would be with fish in here. Or think of it this way, you can just put birds. We're going to do birds and ferns today. You could create a very botanical terrarium looking piece. But yes, you could use this with all different transfers, decoupage papers. We're going to use a combination today. So, but we're going to go through the stencil and this double layer technique. Then we're going to do it on glass, and we're going to create that real dimensional look. This is an antique frame, and I wanted this to look ancient and old. So what I did is I picked one. I mean, it has all of the plaster bits chipped off of it. There's a spider web. I thought I cleaned it well enough, but I really wanted this crazy old chipped grungy look to it. For a reason to use this beautiful Roycycled paper. I think that this is probably my favorite one from the new collection. And so of course I only needed a part of it, and then I'll save this to decoupage over something else. But I wanted a bit of that bright blue, and I want a background for this that's not super busy, okay? Because we're gonna put the stencil over top of this, and we want to make sure that it's not too busy. This is that little section of the Royce paper, and you can see it's a very subtle background, and I'm gonna layer some things over it. This is gonna be a beautiful mixed media piece. Oh, first I want to tell you, I decoupaged this on here ahead of time, and I wanted to do that because when you are, I'm going to be laying some transfers on this, and when you're putting transfers on paper, you know that sometimes that transfer can stick and pull the paper if it's still a little wet. So what I did is I actually used our Funkature rock hard top coat to decoupage this, and I've applied 2 coats of this on my finished decoupage. So I'm just going to be using some Fusion, and the reason I'm using Fusion is because it has a built-in top coat, but it also is going to work beautifully on glass. Okay, so I am just dipping into my paint. I want to offload the best effect that you are going to get, and the crispest lines that you are going to get is when you offload your paint and you're working with a relatively dry brush, because you can always add layers over it. So I'm going to use one hand, and I'm going to stabilize this because there are small parts here. So you want to make sure that you're holding that in place. And yes, I love using this big brush as my stencil brush because it kind of glides right over all of those little parts. Okay, so there's our first layer. This isn't probably going to look like an awful lot just yet, but let's let this dry a bit. And then I'm going to layer this again to give it even some more depth. So look at how that second application has given us even more definition. So we'd rather do a couple of light coats than get a lot of bleeding underneath. I want to create a little bit of shadowing, okay? So I'm going to shift it. See that? Do you see how that happened? I'm going to shift it over. You can shift it to the left, you can shift it to the right. You can do whatever you want. Can you see that, you guys, how I shifted this? And you could even come down a little bit, and that's gonna really give it some crazy dimension. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come over this with my gold paint, my golden ticket. And look at that, all of a sudden, check it out. Do you see that, you guys? Isn't that incredible? Okay, so let's do the next step, because then we're gonna be setting it aside. This is the antique glass that came out of the picture frame. I'm gonna lay this right on top, you guys. All right, so here's my glass, okay? And I am gonna lay this kind of get an idea of where the black is. I'm gonna layer right over that black. You know, to me, that's all right. You know, to me, that's all right. Let's put this aside. Try not to break it. And then let's start putting our little vivarium together. All right, so we've got this on here. It is dry, and I am just going to pull up. These are from Fronds from IOD, is that what it is? And I just have these leftover pieces, so I cut out some little separate pieces. Look, there's that. I mean, we've got all kinds of things happening here. So I'm gonna begin by just laying out my pieces on here. And then I will be trimming so that they don't like come, I want them kind of inside my vivarium. Okay, so see how picky I'm being about my colors, and that's what's going to make it all work together. I don't want that bright green, I decided. But look at how those colors are so much better with the color of this bird. Can you see that, you guys? This kind of planning ahead of time, it's so important. Because you don't want this all wonky and looking like, oh, well, that doesn't fit there. That's weird, you know? Let's get started laying these down. We want to start with the back piece first. So let's pop this aside. Let's pop this aside and this aside, and we're gonna put this little birdie in there first. Now, if I had not let this dry completely with these coats of sealer on it, we would have issues. It would literally stick to the paper and pull that paper up, especially if it's still a little bit damp. And then it literally practically sticks on its own. Look at that. It's like putting it on glass.
Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button and leave us a comment below. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know what you want to see next from L&J Goods.
And those of you who have done toll painting, you'll know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to dip the corner into that paint, and I'm going to blend, blend, blend on one side. Let's just give him a touch of shading. And that's going to help that bird to stand out a little bit more. But look at there, it makes them stand out more. See that? Okay, so let me grab that piece of glass and let's put that over the top of it. And I hope that you guys can see this. Oh my stars. But let's like, okay, so like this guy is outside of my vivarium trying to get in, or maybe he broke free, who knows? Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is, I think that because I am crazy about type of any kind, I'm gonna trim the bottom off of one of Millot's. Doesn't matter what it says. And I'm gonna put that right here. All right, let me grab the frame, and there it is, you guys. Look at that. That is beautiful. They will be here next week, but oh my gosh, I just hope that you guys can see the dimension that's happening with that glass. Isn't that incredible? Oh my gosh, I am so happy with this. So there it is. There is that beautiful new Vivarium Stencil. I love that 3D effect we created with the 2 layers of paint, the metallic, and putting it on glass over stencils. And the frame does pull it all together, doesn't it? That crusty, grungy, old frame. And there we go. What do you think, you guys? Do you love it? I love it. This is Vivarium. Make an aviary, make a terrarium, make an aquarium, whatever you want. There it is.
You'll find everything we used for this project at our brick and mortar shop in Medina, New York, or at lnjgoods.com.